Welcome back, guys. Today I want to talk about 10 things most photographers don't want you to know, but I like to shoot straight with you guys and I'm going to tell you what I know, so let's get started. Okay, first of all, never ever compare your work to another photographer's work. You may have been shooting for a year, they may have been shooting for 20 years. So don't compare yourself to other photographers' work. I've been shooting for 40 years, and there's probably plenty of photographers that have been shooting 20 years that are better than me. But never compare yourself to another photographer. Now, you can, however, compare yourself to your past work. Take a look, always try to improve what you've done. Don't try to outdo what somebody else is doing. Don't try to do what somebody else is doing. Just improve on what you're doing. It reminds me of one time I was playing golf with a friend of mine, and we're pretty competitive. And I said, hey, I've got a 2-stroke lead on you. And at the time, he's like, I'm not playing you, I'm playing the course. And that kind of made sense because, you know, a golf course, if you know much about golf, can be like a par 72 golf course. So he was playing the golf course, trying to break par, beat par, so he wasn't necessarily trying to beat me. I had been playing golf longer than he had, so you know, I wasn't really his biggest concern. He was focused on getting better at his game, and that made sense with me, and that just reminded me of photography, you know, about not comparing yourself to other people's work because you're at a different stage in your life and in your career than where they are. So just continue to make yourself better and let everybody else do what they're doing, and you just make yourself better and go from there, and you'll thank me for that later. The second thing, no need to go out and buy brand new expensive equipment. You can buy a 5-6-year-old, you can even get a DSLR if you want. It doesn't even have to be a new mirrorless camera. So don't run out and feel like you got to buy a brand new Canon R5 or whatever Canon camera's putting out latest, or the latest Nikon or the latest Sony. Get a good camera, but focus mostly on your lenses. Good lenses are going to take you further than a good camera will. Your lenses are going to hold value, and you're going to be able to get better images from a lens than you can from a camera. So just remember that. Spend your money on lenses as you grow. Once you're making money, by then, sure, go out and buy a brand new mirrorless camera that does all the cool, crazy stuff that we like. But when you're starting out, there's no need for that. But do buy used. You can go to MPB, you can go to K8. They both come with warranties. They're both great companies. So I highly suggest to buy used and spend most of your money on the lenses. Number 3, some people won't probably agree with this, but I did it myself and it worked. When you're new and getting started, offer your work for free, and that's going to do a couple things. You're going to get somebody's attention when you say, I'll do your daughter's senior portraits for free, or I'll do your family portraits for free. So you're not going to get turned down when you're offering free very much. But what you can do with that is that gives you images to put on your website. It gives you images to make business cards with. It builds your portfolio. And not to mention, you're going to have some pretty good clients. If they like your work, they're going to keep coming back to you. And probably also, if you're shooting somebody's senior portraits for free, they're going to tell their friends about you. Be sure and tell them, I don't do everybody's for free. I'm just doing yours for free. So when their friends call you, you can charge them some money. So you'll still end up making some money. But starting out, build that portfolio, get your website looking good, and do it for free if you have to for a while, and you'll be good to go. And that's something I've done a lot, and it's always worked. So it will work if you do it right. Hey guys, I just want to take this second of your time. If you guys would please hit like and subscribe, it would go a long ways toward helping our channel and help us keep making these videos. Thank you. And number 4, I want you to focus on good lighting. No matter how good your camera is or how good your lens is, you still got to have some good light. I think photography means drawing with light. So if you don't have any light, you don't have anything to draw with, you need to create your own light. And that's when you can bring in a flash. Flash, you can bounce off the ceiling, you can bounce backwards, you can bounce whatever you need to do. You can use reflectors, but you need to control the light. Don't let the light control you. You're a photographer, you control the light. Good lighting or bad lighting. You can get a scrim if it's hot, if it's bright outside if you need to. You can use a reflector and a field flash if it's kind of dark, but you stay in control of the light. Don't let the light control you. Now, depending on what kind of photography you're getting in, especially if you're getting into weddings, but no matter what kind of photography you're getting into, family portraits, seniors, find a mentor. Find somebody that's been doing it for years in your town and just say, hey, I'm new, I'm learning, I love photography, I'd love to go with you. I'll do it for free, I'll work for free for a while. And not many photographers are going to turn that down. I've trained a lot of people in my life, and I don't recall hardly ever turning many people down that come to me. As long as they have a good personality, a good attitude, and they're trustworthy, I take them on. And you can learn a lot. In fact, you can learn more from a mentor working at a wedding or in different situations than I think you can sitting in a class somewhere reading out of a book, because reading out of a book and learning all the details, that's all good. But getting out in the real world and see what's really happening in photography and what's really going to go on at a wedding, most of that you're not going to find in a book. Most of that you're going to need to be with a mentor, and you need to see how he handles the situation so that you know how to handle that situation when you're in his place, when you're the #1 photographer. And that will go a long way. And by the way, if you're in the Atlanta area and you want to do some work, let me know down bottom. I'm always looking for people to help us out. So there we go. We'll move on to the next one now. This one I think is a given. There are a few photographers that disagree with me. Shoot in RAW. If you got to shoot in JPEG, you can shoot in JPEG and RAW. Shoot them both at the same time as a setting on the back of your camera. Shoot large RAW, large JPEG. You may not know how to edit RAW right now, but 6 months later when you do, you can come back to those pictures, take a look at them, and edit them in RAW, and you'll see what a huge improvement you'll get. In fact, we've got a 2 for Tuesday video coming up, not the next one, but the week after, that will show you what RAW will do versus JPEG. And it's incredible what you can get out of a RAW that you can't get out of a JPEG. And a JPEG, the camera's processing it for you. When you're shooting RAW, the camera's collecting data and you do the processing. It's not really that complicated. Once you get to doing it, you'll understand it and you'll love it. There are a few die-hard JPEG shooters, and that's fine if they want to do it. But shooting in RAW is going to give you a lot more leeway to edit your pictures, and it's a lot safer way to shoot, in my opinion. So go with RAW. Shoot them both. If you're not comfortable just doing just RAW, just shoot RAW, large RAW and large JPEG, and you'll be good. Now, something else as a photographer you need to do is you make sure, before you really do much shooting at all, make sure you understand the exposure triangle, because as far as the technical photography goes, that's about 75% of everything you need to know was wrapped up in the exposure triangle. Now, it doesn't help you with working with people and handling brides and that sort of situation, but as far as the technicalities of learning your camera and your equipment, you need to know the exposure triangle. I think I've done some old videos on the exposure triangle. If you guys want me to do a new video on the exposure triangle, just let me know down below and I'll make one in the next coming few weeks so that you can learn the exposure triangle, because it's very important to know. You've got to know the menu of your camera. You've got to know it really fast when you're in situations you don't have time to sit there and fiddle and look for things. So know your camera inside and out and understand that exposure triangle, and that'll get you off to a very good start. Something else, when you are shooting portraits, say you're doing a senior portrait, you want to blur the background with her. You want to go down to like 2.8. Now, I know a lot of people overuse these low f-stops. They'll go to 1.4 depending on what kind of lens you've got. But sometimes you want to see the background. But when you're doing portraits, senior portraits, 2.8 is a good place to be. If you got a really pretty shot, you want to show a little bit of the background. Sometimes there's a park in Atlanta called Piedmont, and we can see the city skyline in the back. Sometimes I'll change that to f4, so you can kind of tell really where we are. But most of the time, if you're not in a gorgeous place, or if you're just at a park somewhere, 2.8 is the best way to go with seniors, so that you get the emphasis on them and get that blurry background. Just don't overuse it too much, because it can be overused. Sometimes you want to be able to see what's behind you, depending on where you are. As a general rule, shoot around 2.8 for your senior portraits, and the pictures will look beautiful, and they will recommend you because all the emphasis at 2.8 is going to be on the person and nothing that's behind them. You also want to learn the modes on your camera. Most professionals will say they shoot in manual, and they do, and I shoot in manual too, but I also shoot in shutter priority and aperture priority. There's nothing wrong with it. If I'm coming from outside, a bright sunny day, and I'm running inside to a dark building where the reception is, sometimes people are already posing, waiting. I'll just flip right over to shutter priority or aperture priority because it's so much quicker to get there. So it doesn't mean you're not a professional if you have to go to shutter priority or aperture priority. Understand what they do and feel free to use them. It's just a quick way to get the job done, and it will look fine. Nobody will be able to take a look at the picture and say, well, you shot this in aperture priority. They won't know that. Just learn your camera, learn it inside and out. Aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual are the three that I use mostly. Some of the new Canons have a new FV mode, but that's a video for another day. If you already understand the FV mode, feel free to use it. But right now I'm just going to stick with the main three: manual, shutter, and aperture priority. Learn those and you'll be good to go. Now for the last one, number 10. Do not be afraid to use your ISO higher. Now if you're shooting with a Canon 20D that's 20 years old, you might want to be a little bit afraid to raise your ISO. Probably won't go over 400. But if you're shooting with a camera that's 5, 6 years old, you can take it up to 800, 1200 and be fine. My Canon R6, I know my camera, I can shoot up to 12,800 and have very little grain at 12,800. I've got a Canon 6D that I don't generally take over 1600. It'll do 3200. It's not terrible, but just learn your particular camera because they're all different. Learn how high you can go with your ISO, because one thing about shooting with ISO, I understand that you want to shoot low all the time to get, you know, the sharpest picture you can get, the cleanest looking. But if I've got a bride and groom and say they're getting married at like a golf course, and I've got them out front of the building and it's beautiful lights and windows, if you shoot that at 100 with a flash, all you're going to get is a shot of your bride and groom. But if you turn that up to like 3200, you'll not only have the bride and groom, but you'll have some lights in the background. You'll have a lamp light coming through the window. You'll be able to see lights here and things in the background, and it gives it like a little 3D separation. You'll be able to see some depth in your image, and that's what you want. Just learn your camera, go to its highest point that you can still get a decent picture without getting too much grain, and use that ISO. It looks a lot better. Sometimes I'll use 400 even in the shade, or 800 outside, just for that particular reason. And again, it depends on your camera and depends on what you're trying to do, but just don't be afraid to turn the ISO up a little bit. You're not going to hurt anything doing that. All I say, just to be careful, learn your camera, shoot a bunch of test shots if you need to, find out where the grain starts looking bad, and cut your camera off at that point. There's even a setting in the back of your camera that you can set maximum ISO, so that if you go into a shutter priority or an aperture priority, your camera won't go above that ISO. But anyway, those are the 10 things I want to tell you guys about, and I like to shoot straight with you guys, tell you what I know, what I've done in the past. And if we're helping you guys out, you know, you enjoyed the video, give me that big thumbs up. If we're helping you guys out, my email is down at the bottom. You can leave a comment down at the bottom, or you can send me an email, and I'll be glad to get back to you, and I'll help you guys out any way I can, wherever you're at in your photography career. I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next video. Thank you.